Google Pest Control Marketer. Grow your business like never before. Call 770-993-0004.
Well, hello, folks. This is Hal Coleman. I'm here with my sidekick and partner in crime, Mike Stewart, and welcome to another episode of the Pest Control Marketing Podcast and PestControlMarketing.live, the only internet TV show totally dedicated to helping you, the PCOs, WCOs, grow your business, get more new customers, and make more moolah. How's that, Mike?
That's what we try to get across, and as Dan Kennedy used to say, some will, some won't. So what? We're just looking for the some wills.
We're looking to help the some wills and the some won'ts just won't. So, Mike, I got a great guest for us today. I don't think y'all really know each other, but you just will meet on camera here. But this guy's been a friend of mine in the pest control industry for a long time. I don't know how many years we go back. We served on committees together in the Georgia Pest Control Association, I know, over 20 years ago. And this guy started out I know that I can't be exact with a lot of numbers because he sold his pest control business a while back, but he started out as a one-man operator like so many people do and built a multi-million-dollar business. And his name is Darrell Lee. He's a great guy. And I asked him if he would share some ideas with us and our viewers and listeners today about if you're a one-man operator or two-man operator and you have a vision of building $1 million or multi-million-dollar pest control business or wildlife control business, there's some things that you're going to have to do in order to make that happen, and things you're going to have to think about. So that's what I want Darrell to talk about us. So why don't we bring him out if he's through sipping his champagne and eating his cheese back there in the green room, and he's ready to go, we'll bring out Darrell Lee.
Yeah, all right.
How you doing, Darrell?
I'm doing good, Hal. Thanks for having me on today.
Well, listen, it's a pleasure. I've been wanting to have you on for a long time, but you know how those things go. But I guess you heard us. You heard my introduction of you. I hope you did. Did you?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Well, you have got so much valuable information, I know, to share with our listeners. Most of our viewers and our listeners are small pest control companies. They're not big mega. I don't think any of them are probably in the top 100 PCT list of the top 100. Maybe some are, but most of them are out there and they're struggling like you and I did in the days, trying to build a business and trying to get it to grow and trying to make the phone ring more and thinking about expanding and putting on another truck and hiring somebody else and buying another B&G sprayer. So, yeah, I'd love for you to give us some insights on that. If you're speaking to the 1 or 2 or 3 man operator that's had a business for a few years and it doesn't seem to be really going anywhere very fast, and they have a dream of a big multi-million-dollar company, what are some gold nuggets you could share with those people?
Well, first, Hal, Mike, again, thanks for having me on. This is actually, believe it or not, the first podcast. I've been on a lot of things, but this is a first for me. So thanks for having me on.
We're honored to have you.
Well, let me start by saying this. I tell people all the time, there's really no secrets. I mean, I was the poster child for the most likely to not succeed. But I started out just like everyone. I came from small beginnings. I grew up in a 400 square foot shotgun shack in the ghetto. And I took baths in the creek every Saturday, whether I needed it or not. We brought home water to cook in. I started working in soybean fields when I was 11 years old. So I come from a very, very poor background, no education whatsoever. I tell people, I was the guy who wasn't supposed to succeed. But really, I started out, believe it or not, just like everybody else, just one man, one truck. And when I got big enough, when I filled that truck up, I went to an auction and I paid $700 and I bought another truck. And that's how I did it. Most people don't have a lot of capital. As a matter of fact, if I can dive into this,
Yes, sir.
people ask, why, how is it that the small businesses, how do they make that leap? And the first thing that I would say is that most people really don't have a foundation. They haven't, when they started, they really have. I go to some of these web pages and people are asking questions like, I just got my license. Now what should I do? And that's the number one problem, is people haven't sat down, taken time, put together a marketing plan. You don't have to hire anybody, but have a marketing plan, figure out what your niche is going to be. For us, when I started out, okay, I'm going to get some haters here. I was the guy everybody hated. I was the pre-treat guy. That's how we started. I knew a lot of builders. I had builder friends. Some of my family was in that business. And, but I would say have a niche. I know everybody says, well, is pest control a niche? Well, there's 100 different types of pest control niches. And by the way, there's a lot of companies out there doing pre-treats, for instance. We decided to be pre-treats ASAP. Believe it or not, that's what we wrote down on a poster on our wall. Pre-treats ASAP. We put a salesman in a truck full of product with a pump you just wouldn't even believe that could pump 40 gallons a minute. Yes, we did that. And wherever we found red dirt, we pulled in and said, hey, who's doing your pre-treats? And so I would say, one of the things is have a niche. Don't just go out there and say, well, I'm going to do pest control. What kind of pest control are you going to do? How are you going to do it? Are you going to do monthly? Are you going to do quarterly? You know that the largest privately held pest control company in the United States at one time was started by Chuck Steinmetz at All American Termite Pest Control, DBA Sears, doing something no one ever done, and that was once a year pest control, and became a $100 million company. So I would say have a niche, develop that niche. And for me, that was critically important starting out.
Yeah. And I think it was, the old saying, you can't be all things. If you try to be all things to all people, you end up being nothing to nobody. And I remember, I know you've heard of Jerry Garcia with the Grateful Dead once said, you don't want to be one of anything. You want to be the one that everybody turns to for this particular thing. And maybe your niche is residential household pest control. Maybe it's restaurants, maybe it's hotels, maybe it's pre-treats. But yeah, and I totally am right there with you on that. So what about the thing that's going to take you from a one-man operation to a 10-man operation? A couple of things that you're going to have to do differently than you did. And besides just getting more customers, but once you hire that first employee, now, when you're a one man, and I believe this, and you may or may not agree, but when you're a one man operator, you have a job. But when you hire an employee and get a new truck and have a payroll, now you have a business. And that's when If it's just you, then you don't have to worry about anything but you. But now you're going to have these other things. So moving up to that 10-man company. What are some of the obstacles that you're going to have to overcome, or the walls that you might get slammed into not realizing it?
So the number two problem, I think it was number two or number three in a study once, why businesses don't make that leap, they don't scale, is they lacked planning in their business. I know people like to hear, give us that, that salesy thing that you did that made you a $10 million company. And I will tell you that one of the things that's critical to make the leap from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to when we sold our business, we had 80 plus employees, but is planning, proper planning, annual planning, quarterly planning, and weekly tag in, whatever you want to call it, pulsing. But these are all the things how that are absolutely critical. For instance, if you want to get to that 2 or that 3 man, you got to put $1 to that, right? If you're trying to hit $110, $125 per employee in your company, and I'm shooting to get to that 3 employee, I now have to think about, okay, how do I get to that $400,000? Because I got to turn that into a number now. So for us, we had to develop a 3-year and a 5-year goal. If we were going to hit 300,000 this year, and then all things being equal, that means in 5 years, that's 1.5 million, right? So I had to write that down and say, okay, this is my goal 5 years. This is my goal 3 years. So if my goal is 3 years to hit this, then that means this year I need to be a $400,000 company. In order to hit that number, I had to draw a picture of what that looked like. I needed 3 guys. I needed 4 trucks. I needed a CSR. So the first thing that you have to do is you really have to sit down on paper and pen, and you have to plan out what that's going to look like. So you got to
give Elmo a clear picture.
You got to get ready. You got to
give Elmo's got to see the picture before he can make it come true.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. So so for us, one of the things that was absolutely critical, I tell people this. First off, not everybody here is wanting to sell their business, but if you are wanting to sell your business, right, then you better have recurring revenue, because no one's interested in buying a bunch of one-time services.
Right.
I told this to a friend 3 years ago. He was selling a particular service, and I don't want to divulge it and spotlight him, I said, you're not going to have recurring revenue on that type of service. Well, last year he closed shop and went to work for one of the big box stores. So recurring revenue is important. And one of the things that we de-incentivized. We had guys selling one-time services, and we said, okay, if you want to sell one-time services, we're going to pay you 5%. If you sell recurring services, we're going to pay you 10%. So one of the things that we did was, when we went to that B job or that one-time hornet's nest, we said, hey, it's going to be, $299, but here's what we can do today. We will do it for $199 if you will sign for a quarterly recurring service. And not only are we going to take care of the bees, but we're going to take care of the ants, the wasps, the centipedes, millipedes, the crickets, and all the other problems. And that's an easy sale.
Yeah. I teach my clients, I work with clients from upstate New York to Southern California and Yakima, Washington to Miami, and have for 15 years now. And I have been surprised is not the right word, maybe shocked, that in some parts of the country, the recurring revenue is something they're not familiar with. Some of them advertise. They literally advertise with us. You don't have to sign an agreement. We just come and do a job. No agreement, no nothing. We just come out and do it. And if you ever need us again, you can call us. And I have a hard time teaching they do that with their subterranean termite jobs. And they just do the treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And they give a 6 month or a year's guarantee, and goodbye, that customer's gone forever. And I said, no, you need to be receiving an annual fee to renew that warranty year after year after year. You mean you can do that? Yes, you can do it. Now, here in the southeastern United States, it's common to have, termite renewals and recurring revenue. But in some parts of the country, it seems like nobody's ever told them that.
Yeah.
And I have the hardest time with it because they feel like if they try to get somebody to sign up, they're not going to get the one-time treatment. But like you said, you should just about be able to convert any one-time treatment, hornet's nest, yellow jacket's nest, or whatever. You ought to be able to convert that into a quarterly or a recurring revenue. Just make them an offer they can't refuse.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, well, I don't want to give away that treat. They're looking at the dollar right now that they're about to receive in their hand. And I don't know if you heard of Dan Kennedy. He's one of my mentors, who's one of the most successful marketing coaches on the planet. And he always says the purpose of advertising is not to make money, it's to get a customer.
Yeah.
You get the customer and then give them great service, and they'll pay you money from now on. And that's where you make the money. But people try to make too much money up front on the initial deal, and they're not looking down the road. They're not looking at the long-term lifetime value of what they're about to get. And they blow it a lot of times because they're just looking at taking that dollar right now. And you're right. That recurring revenue. What is it like? Companies that most companies are looking at they want you to have 70% or more recurring revenue at least. Is that a ballpark of what they look for?
Yes. If I think John, I can't remember his last name, at Rentakill in a podcast that I heard recently, says 70%. If you've got a company, Hal, if you've got a company that's doing 80%, it's just a gold mine. Mm-hmm. Our company was 87% recurring revenue.
That's great. That's great. So, yeah. They're lined up to want. That's a very profitable company.
Yeah.
And I had one guy that I talked with who had a pest control business, and he had he was a one-man operator, but in business for quite a few years. I don't know how much business he did, but he had built up a really good pest control route, and he did termite, and he got ready to retire, and he just sent a letter to all of his customers and said, I'm retiring. You'll have to find somebody else. Good luck. And threw his coveralls in the trash can, gave his flashlight to his grandkids. And I said, you could have sold your business. Wow. He said, what do you mean I could have sold my business? You could have sold all of that for maybe I'm imagining he did. I'm just guessing, knowing him, he probably had $150,000 business. And I said, somebody would have, you mean they would have bought it? Yeah. So some folks get in their own little world, and they don't realize what they have there. And doing another thing that building a sellable business, some people are really proud of the fact that they'll give you a little discount if you'll pay them cash so they don't have to report it. And I'm like, that's like taking money out of your savings account right there. people would ask me that say, if I proposed them a $1,200 termite treatment, they said, well, what, how much will it be if I pay you cash? I said, $1,200, because it's all going on my books, because I want my books to grow. I want my tax return to grow, because at some point that's like my savings account right there. That's what I'm going to cash in at some point. I never would take, although I'll admit I did trade a rat job for a massage one time. It was a legitimate one. I had a lady that was a massage therapist, and but
you speak English.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so this is great. So when you have a company like yours that's profitable, and you can't go cheap, if your culture has to be one that's, if you're undercutting everybody's prices and getting jobs, then somebody looks at it and they say, well, your prices are so low, we can't fit that in. We can't make that profitable by blending it in with our culture,
Yeah.
And so building a sellable business where you get a premium price, and your customers love you and they trust you. And if you sell and you tell them to stay with that company, they're going to trust you and they're going to stay there. And there's these things have to be considered. Yeah.
And the other thing, those things are important. Recurring revenue is important in selling a business, but I know you're the marketing guru. Your recurring customer database we always refer to it as, we used a common theme, a common word we threw around. Everyone in our organization understood the concept of marketing universe. Our database was our marketing universe. Mm-hmm. We had 26,000 customers. We didn't have to we did a lot of outside marketing, but our best customers were our customers who had been with us for 8, 10, 12. When we sold our business, I believe our second or third customer that I got on the first day that I was in business was still with us.
Mm-hmm.
But that recurring revenue database is your marketing universe. So yes, you could do things just as simple as with the CRM softwares that are available now. You could do things as simple as sending out texts, sending out, we tried not to do a lot of that to, upset our customers. But occasionally at the end of the month, when we were so goal driven in our company, and if we had a 10% growth goal and we were 3 days away and we were sitting at 9.5%, then we took the gloves off. We would send out emails. We would send out voice blast. We would send out all of that to our customers. I can remember days, Hal, where we would send out a massive email to, we would pinpoint maybe a group of lawn customers that we wanted to target, quarterly pest control or vice versa. And we would send out, rather than send out 26,000, we would target 1,000, and we would get, maybe we'd get $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 from there. And then if that wasn't enough, we'd send out another blast. And by the time those 3 days came around, guess what? We hit our goal. Why? Because we understood the value of that marketing universe. So
yes, sir.
Those recurring customers are important.
And another part of that, I don't know if y'all included this in your universe, but I would, that the valuable gold mine is your former customers. They were with you. They're not active anymore, but there's a gold mine laying there in those contacts. And I tell people, when times get slow and you get worried, just start calling those former customers and saying, Mr. Johnson, this is Darrell with Darrell's Pest Control, and I just you used to be our customer, and I just want to reach out to you, and I hope you're doing well, and let you know that we're doing well. And if you have any pest problems at all or any questions, we're here to serve you. We'd love to have you back. And you won't make too many calls until somebody says, I am so glad you called. I've been telling my husband to call you. We couldn't remember the name of your company. And we just, we need you. When can you come out here? I said, you won't make too many calls until you're in the truck headed out to somebody's house. And it's a gold mine.
You know, you'd be surprised that, and I know I can hear you speaking from experience. One of the common reasons that people will cancel their service is they're in between jobs. They'll lose a job or they'll make a move and they'll cancel the service, but they're not out of a job, but no more than a few weeks or a few months. So if you just call them back a month from now or 2 months from now, guess what? They're back in a job, probably a better job, making more money and can afford your service again.
I did a workshop one day down in Griffin, one that they held at Dan Suter's office down there at the University of Georgia campus. And I tell you, and it was for all good services. They had about 35 employees there. And I did an all-day workshop for them. And we talked about this follow-up, and one guy raised his hand and he said, let me tell you something that happened to me. He said, I was cleaning out my desk drawer and just hadn't cleaned it out in 10 years. And he said, I came across a proposal and a graph where I'd proposed a termite treatment 15 years ago. He said, now how it got in this pile of papers, I don't know. But he said, I looked at it and said, well, good grief. Where'd this come from? And he said, I started to toss it in the trash can, but heck, there was a phone number on it. So he said, I just called it. And the guy answered, and I told him my name, who it was. And the guy literally said, man, where in the hell have you been? He said, I couldn't find your phone number. I didn't remember it. I got to get this house treated for termites. He said, I almost fell out of my chair. And he said, the guy had been waiting for 15 years. He had just hadn't thought about it. And he said, I was so excited that I gave him the same price I had quoted him 15 years ago. And he said, I had to turn that in and explain it to but there again, they don't remember who you are. If you number one, you should never let anybody forget who you are. One of my mentors when years past that really got me started in marketing, and Mike, one of Mike's mentors too, and a great friend, was a guy named Larry Latimer. And I asked Larry one time, I said, when do you stop following up with a prospect? He said, well, one of three things has to happen. He said, they either buy, they die, or they get an unlisted phone number. He said, if none of those things happen, you just keep calling from time to time. And, he said, if they tell you don't ever call them again, don't ever call them again. Send them an email. But you just, there's a fortune in that follow-up, when you need, and it doesn't cost you anything other than a minute to sit down and call somebody. But that should be in somebody's unit. I mean, that's I would say part of the universe too, is my current customers and my past customers. Yeah,
absolutely. Those people cancel for a lot of reasons. For us, movers was number one. And to be honest with you, when you're a big company, service can be pretty high up there. Sometimes you lose grip, especially post-COVID hiring. We weren't getting the quality of people we wanted. So service, what's really weird sometimes, Hal, is that you can even lose a customer due to poor service, right? Mm-hmm. And I told my son, who we own a concrete construction business, and he had an employee that he wanted to get rid of or replace. And I said, hey, maybe you should just work on that employee, because the person you hire may be worse than the person person you get. So he hired someone, and the second day of their employment, they didn't show up. But this is the way it is out there with customers, is that sometimes they don't like the fact that maybe they didn't get that phone call up front, right? It's they should have gotten that call, but they didn't. But it wasn't really terribly bad. So they canceled and went on. And then a week later, they realized they went from the frying pan to the fire. They hired a company that don't even show up, period. And then all of a sudden, they're needing another company again. So don't be afraid to call those customers, as you're saying, those canceled customers. That drawer is a gold mine. Don't shred those. Don't throw those away. Keep those and mind those.
Yeah. Yeah. And be bold. You know, you have to be bold with your marketing and selling. You know, I read a statistic, and I don't know where I heard it, and it might be from that guy that's on the radio, Jason Evans, who calls himself the world's #1 sales trainer. You know who I'm talking about?
I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah. And offers a free 45-minute video. And I called him and I got it, and it was really good, but it just didn't apply to my coaching business. It applied to a business with employees that wanted, you know, and it was good stuff, but it just didn't fit me. But they were very nice, and I talked with them. But he said that 96% of salespeople have never even read one book on selling. And you know, in the home services industry, like ours, like pest control, we're blue collar guys through and through. I mean, we believe in being honest, doing a hard day's work. If you take care of your customers, they'll take care of you. And a lot of people have a tendency to think, I don't need to read any book or go to any seminar and listen to anybody tell me how to sell. Oh, Fred Johnson taught me how to sell 20 years ago in our company, and he was the best salesman we had, and he taught me how to sell. But you know, you have to take selling seriously and marketing seriously if you want that phone to start ringing. And it's true, if you take care of your customers, they'll take care of you. But if you learn how to advertise effectively and market effectively, you'll get a lot more customers to take care of that will take care of you. You get to a point where just taking care of your customers and keeping your nose to the grindstone will get you so far. But you got to learn how to sell and learn the secrets to marketing and selling and apply those, you know, working more on your business instead of in it, and learning. Because in blue collar industries, that guy's right. I think 96% of people, I had a guy back probably 18 or 20 years ago now that I met through the Chamber of Commerce. And he was a professional speaker. He flew all over the country speaking, teaching people how to sell. To do a half-day workshop, he got $10,000. And he flew. That's what I thought I wanted to do at one time, until I heard his stories. Well, I got to be in Houston tomorrow to do one, and then I'll probably sleep in the airport, because then I got to go to Kansas, and I'm coming back to Atlanta, and then I got to go to Charlotte, and then and I'm thinking that's not the lifestyle I want. You know, I want to be able to teach people over the internet. But he called me one day and he said, Hal, he said, I've bought this, and I'll tell you right up front, I'm about to insult some people. Okay. I'm about to really insult some people, but that's okay. I'm not afraid to do that. But he called me one day, he said, Hal, he said, I've bought an old house down in Midtown Atlanta, really old house. And I'm going to renovate it. I'm in the process of renovating it. And he said, I'm probably going to live in it. And he said, the person working on it said they've discovered termites, and I need to get it treated for termites. And at that time, I wasn't in the business anymore. Actually, I sold my business a little over 15 years ago. So, I said, well, here's what you need to do. I said, and I knew him. I knew he was really, was going to take all this seriously. So I said, what you need to do is I'm going to give you the name of 3 companies. I said, one of them is small, probably got 2 employees. And I said, the other one is a pretty good sized company. And the other one is a really big company, mega millions dollars companies. I don't know what your tendency is to how to deal with people, but I'm going to give you the names of 3 companies. And I'll tell you, I know them all personally. They're all reputable people. And I think any one of them would do you a great job. So you just call them and talk to them and have them come out, and you choose the one that you feel comfortable with. He said, that's great. And I said, you tell them that you want them to send the best salesman they've got out to your house. He said, I will do that. Don't worry about that. So he called me back in about a week, and he said, well, Hal, I called him, told him you recommended me, and I told him I wanted their best salesman they had to come to my house. And he said, if those guys are representative of the best salespeople in your industry, he said, I don't know how y'all exist. He said, these were the worst salespeople I have ever met in my entire life. He said, I don't know how they sell anything. I said, well, I hate to say this, but I said, they probably are pretty typical of our industry. Well, we think we're pretty good salespeople, but the world you live in, which is world-class psychological selling, I said, they wouldn't have a clue. And so taking selling seriously and learning, believe me, if you're in a blue-collar industry, pest control, roofing, plumbing, heating and air, carpeting, lawn care, painting, siding, windows, I don't care what it is. There's a lot that we don't know about. And if you learn it, if you take it seriously and dive into it, learn it, out-competing your competition is a piece of cake. They have no clue of the things that you're doing. But that's one thing that I know that I didn't realize in the beginning. I thought I was a good salesman. I was a salesman for 3 years full time at a large pest control company, and then went in business for myself. I thought I was a pretty good salesman, but marketing guy. But looking back, the time it took me to hit the $1 million mark would have been cut by a 2/3 if I had known what I was doing. So yeah, it's not just about killing bugs and thinking that those customers are going, they'll if you want a job, that's what you'll have, and people love you to death. But if you want to build that retirement where someday you'll be sitting there at the beach on a podcast, you've got to learn how to do some things. You got to learn how to do some things.
To the point that you're saying, how about learning how to sell. I've instilled this in my kids. My kids, they own their own businesses as well. And I've told them many times, in your lifetime, you're going to acquire a lot of assets. You're going to own and invest in a lot of things. But one thing that I have not been able to do or get to happen, I've never been able to get my computer to duplicate itself into another computer. So I told my kids, I said, your greatest asset you will ever invest in is yourself. Because you will have the ability to duplicate yourself over and over and over. And owners should take the time. Don't bang your head against the wall. You go out to the customer's house and you're hearing the same objection. My husband's not home. My wife's not home. My wife's not home. My wife's not home. My wife's not home. I want to think about it. I want to think about it. I want to think. And you hear that over and over and over and over. At what point are you going to sit down and figure out and write it out how you're going to overcome that objection? So invest in learning how to do the service, invest in how to be a better owner, a better boss, but also invest time in trying to be a better salesman, hone your craft.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
One
anything.
One of the other things that while we were talking about the we were doing a lot of pre-treats, and I know a lot of people don't do that and don't want to do that. For us, it was our lead. We called it our lost lead service because we understood the law of utilization. Being able to go out into a neighborhood, and I know, again, people will hate on me if I say, well, our guys are doing 25 stops a day. Well, hey, if you're on one street, yeah, you can do that. So that we understood that the law of utilization, spending less windshield time, more time in front of the customer. But door to door, that's something that no one does anymore, or wants to do, or wants to talk about. But I will tell you, the fastest growing companies in the United States, the fastest growing door companies, pest control companies, lawn care companies, alarm companies, window companies, are door-to-door companies. They're
Absolutely.
door-to-door. And one of the things that we did, Hal, is I remember ordering. I will never forget the day they showed up at my door with 3 pallets of mugs. I'm talking about coffee mugs. And we got those in, and I prepared for the sales meeting, and I set a case of those on the tables. This was years ago, in front of all of our salesmen. And, I have the mug sitting out, and the title of our meeting was, we're going to mug them to death. And that's what we did. We went from door to door with that mug, with a magnet, with a pen, a potato chip clip, or something else. I don't remember, a few other things. And we actually handed it to them at the door, Hal, and we just said, hey, my name's Darrell. I'm with Future Services. We are the neighborhood pest control company. We're doing all the pest control in this neighborhood. And we wanted to welcome you into the home, because we got this list, all the new homeowners, right, in the last 30 days. So we'd knock on their door, and we would give them that mug and say, hey, welcome to the neighborhood. I'm Darrell, Future Services. We're the local pest control company, and we wanted to give you a welcome to the neighborhood gift. We never said, hey, we want to offer you our pest control. We just said, here's a gift from us. And they would say, oh man, that is so nice. That is so nice. How much do y'all charge for pest control? Isn't that great? We never even asked them. Yeah. They just came right out and asked us. We call that in our industry what? A warm lead.
Yes, sir. I call it the law of reciprocity.
The law of reciprocity.
You gave them a ticket, and now you remember the old Fuller Brush Man? Did y'all have a Fuller Brush? You had a Fuller Brush Man in your neighborhood somewhere, probably.
Probably.
The Fuller Brush Company. They're still around, but in all small towns, there was a guy in every town that worked for the Fuller Brush Company, and they were door to door. So they had brushes, cleaners, lotions, scrubbers, utensils, all kind of stuff for the house, mostly for the kitchen, but the guy would walk down the street with a big suitcase full of stuff, knocking on doors. And usually it was during the day, the lady of the house would come to the door. This was before most women worked, this was when most women were home during the day, and the men were out working, and he'd say, ma'am, I'm Hal with Fuller Brush Company. I got this. I want to give you a brush. It's this is Coca-Cola wood and Russian boar bristles in here. It's guaranteed, the lifetime guarantee, and you can scrub. You can do all the stuff with it. And I just wanted to give it to you today as a gift, and no charge, no nothing. So they'd take the brush, and he'd say, it's 95 degrees out there, and he'd say, by the way, I've got in my suitcase a lot of other items that you might be interested in. If you'd like, would you like to see some of them? And sure, come on in. And See, you just gave them the brush. They can't tell you to leave. They can, no, I don't want to say anything else, but thank you for the brush. Now, the law of reciprocity kicks in. So they've got to looking. But if you just showed up with the suitcase and said, I'm Hal with Fuller Brush Company, I got a suitcase full of stuff here I'd like to show you might be interested in. Oh, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I don't have time for it. But give them something. And now they feel indebted to you and appreciative, and they will allow you, they'll reciprocate and give you some time. That's a great story.
Yeah.
And people worry about it's amazing to me that people will build their entire marketing strategy around the one person that might get offended by what they do. I don't know how many times I've told you clients tell me they don't want to put any signs on the side of their truck because they said my customers won't want me to pull in the driveway. They won't want anybody to know that they have a pest control company in the driveway. Now, I know your vehicles were marked future services, right? Pest service. How many times in your entire life did anybody complain that you had your identification on the side of your truck?
Yeah.
But people worry about, they say, well, somebody might complain about that, or call them back. You know, I read a study that 86% of people, wait a minute, let me get this right. 82% of people make a purchase after from 5 to 12 exposures. 91% of salespeople admit they give up after 2 to 4 follow-up calls.
Yeah.
So 91% of salespeople are leaving 84% of the business or 82% of the business on the table.
I heard some guys.
Have you called that guy back? No, I've called him 3 times. I'm not going to call him again. You know, well, he might say yes on the 7th time or the 9th time, but people worry about offending somebody. Dan Kennedy says if you haven't pissed off at least one person by 12 noon every day, you're not marketing your business nearly hard enough. You're leaving a fortune on the table because you're afraid you might offend somebody, or they might fuss at you or yell at you and say, don't you call me anymore, you know? So, yeah. So, well, listen, Darrell, anything you want to wrap up with?
No, I would just say, just don't give up, grind, have a good plan in place on how you're going to get from 1 technician to 2 technicians. I know for us, we always had a half guy, on staff. So we were always in between a route. So always have a plan on how you're going to get from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And, don't be afraid to get out there and grind. This is 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. And if I did it, if old country boy from Mississippi can do this, anybody can do it.
Oh, listen, if a redneck squirrel hunter from Roswell can do it, anybody can do it. So listen, this has been great. And I appreciate you. I know you're on vacation. You took time out to probably from laying on the beach and having a good time to come and do this podcast. Mike and I both really, really appreciate it and like to have you on again sometime if you'd like to do that. And so
sounds good.
With that, thank you so much, Darrell, and I hope you have a great rest of your vacation.
Thanks for having me on today, guys.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And Mike, you got any input and any? I know you've probably been asleep while we were talking. And
no, I'm here. I was going to. No, I mean it's just it's obvious that Darrell was persistent and consistent, and he did the things he needed to do to grow his business, and he grew it to, with those goals. I mean, goal setting is very Napoleon Hill type information, and Dan Kennedy, and all the success stories I've ever heard in my life. Nobody was pure luck. There was a lot of. I think Edison said it's 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get an inspiration and a goal in a matter of seconds, but it takes hard work and dedication and consistency. And, whatever your marketing is, learn to do it well. And if you struggle with marketing, that's what you and I do. If you want to get a hold of Hal, one of the things I'll flash up for the people that are watching the video. Hal has a website, pestcontrolmarketer.com, full of information, links to all the things he does. But, he spends an hour with potential clients, people who are interested in what it's all about to work with him. And he does that over the phone. So call him to schedule that 770-993-0004. Just be sure that you call that number, 770-993-0004. It's in our jingle. When you hear the jingle, hey, I'm a big proponent of the jingles. And if you want to talk to me, I am out helping businesses pay attention to the local big three. The local big three is your Google reviews, your content marketing, having a podcast, having a blog, your social media. That's content marketing. And then paid advertising. There's a right way to do paid advertising and there's a wrong way. And most people, we used to say in the old days, half my advertising isn't working. I just don't know which half. But that's not true on the internet. If it works, spend more money. If it doesn't, stop and try something different. So it's amazing how many businesses just aren't even aware of the big three, and that's what I try to do. So if you want me to evaluate that for me, call me at 770-826-3662. And Hal, I think great show, great time getting to know Darrell, and I hope he's enjoying his vacation, and he earned it with all those years of hard work.
He sure did.
And I think we ought to scoot on out of here. Don't you think so?
I think so, folks. We are going to get on out of here. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Pest Control Marketing Podcast and pestcontrolmarketing.live. And thank you, Darrell Lee, for being our guest today. We'll catch you next time, folks.
Hal Coleman has been active in the pest control industry for over 40 years, including owning and operating his own successful pest control business for 18 years. He now devotes his time to helping other PCOs and other WCOs double, triple, and even quadruple their businesses faster than they ever imagined. Be sure to check out his website, pestcontrolmarketer.com. For more information about Hal's coaching program, you can reach him at 770-993-0004 or email him hal@halcoleman.com. Mike Stewart is known as the Internet audio and video guy. Since the birth of the Internet, Mike has been showing small business owners how to get more new customers, increase their sales, and grow their businesses online using audio and video, now with iPhones and Android phones. For more information about Mike's coaching program and his online training courses, visit MikeStewartCoaching.com or email him mike@internetaudioguide.com.
Google Pest Control Marketer. Grow your business like never before. Call 770-993